Welcome. You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. Listen to conversations with courageous souls who've stepped out of their comfort zone and designed a new way of life. They'll share their experiences, wisdom, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. All right, I'm here today with Barbara Harris, and she and I met online on Facebook, and she's from Canada and has been living in Mexico for 9 years, I believe you said. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Barbara, I would love for you to tell me about your overseas life redesign journey and how that kind of came about. If you've lived other places outside of Canada before, or if this was your first time living overseas?
No, it's not my first time. Actually, when I was in my 20s, I lived in Australia for a couple of years, which was lots and lots and lots of fun. But came back home and lived in British Columbia, Canada for a while, and then went back to Toronto, which was my home base. And I stayed there for a few more years, and then I ended up back in BC. And in BC, that's where I met my husband. And then we made this trip down here, and so we've been here in Mexico 9 years now.
Right. And I think you told me you're about 30 minutes north of Puerto Vallarta. Is that right?
Yes, in a town called Bucerías. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a wonderful little beach town, although we're on the mountainside of the highway where it's a little more quiet because Mexico doesn't tend to be quiet. If you're looking for a quiet place to retire, Mexico might not be it, but everything else is perfect here, but quiet isn't its charm.
Right. And so that's not the first place you've lived in Mexico. I know when we talked initially, you actually have lived in quite a few different places in Mexico.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Can you take us through that journey and kind of tell me, what you liked, what you didn't like? Because there's a lot of folks that are looking at Mexico, but they're not really quite sure where they want to go. So I think hearing your story might be really helpful.
All right. So we started in Puerto Morelos, which is halfway between Cancun and Playa del Carmen. And it's right on the beach. And the beach there is spectacular. The swimming is wonderful because it doesn't have the great big huge waves. So we loved it there, but it was quite a small town. And then the other towns were very big and touristy. So we were looking for something a little bit more in between, even though we loved it there. One day it rained while we were on our month's vacation there to check it out. And we watched House Hunters International. And we learned about Merida.
Okay.
Fun. So we decided to rent a car for a week, and we drove to Merida, and we lined up a realtor, and he showed us the beautiful colonial homes in Merida, which 9 years ago were extremely affordable. I haven't really checked that real estate out recently, but you could get a beautiful 2-bedroom colonial for like $110,000 US fully furnished, and it was gorgeous.
Wow.
Having said that, when we drove into Merida, even though I loved it, I was just moved from the Vancouver area in British Columbia, and it was like hustle, bustle, buses, busy streets, and that wasn't what I was looking for. So the realtor took us out to Progreso and to the beach area out there and showed us 2 or 3 homes out there. And my poor husband, he's always afraid when I get an idea.
Yours too, huh?
Yeah. So as we were driving in the car on the way back to Merida after we'd been out looking at these beach homes, I said to him, that last villa we looked at, we could go home, sell everything up, buy that, retire early, and we could afford to live here. I've just figured it all out in my head. And my husband's like, how can you do that in your head? So, well, I know what our income is. I just figured out what the expenses are in that. And my analyzing husband said to me, "Oh, okay, then let's do it." And I nearly had a heart attack because actually I count on him analyzing things.
Oh, I get you. I get that. I get that.
Making sure we're going to be safe. So anyway, we went to bed in the hotel that night. I woke up in the morning and he says to me, "You're right." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I got out the computer and our spreadsheet from home and did the expenses." He says, "But I need to tell you you're out $100. I said, $100? He says, "Yeah, to the good." He said, "We've got an extra $100 a month." So we said, "Okay, let's do it." So we phoned our realtor in Canada. And fortunately, we just made the move from the big house and the big garage and the big yard to a nice 2-bedroom condo. So we had our realtor put that on the market while we were still down there. We put an offer in on the place in Progreso, which is half an hour from Merida, right on the ocean. And the villa that we put the offer in on was 1 block from the beach and 10 small villas in a little closed-in area. Anyway, it all went through. 7 months later, we packed up in Canada. We drove down, and here we are. Then we were there in Progreso, and we bought a beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom villa with its own private swimming pool for 140,000 Canadian, fully furnished. So we were pretty happy with that.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. So we did a lot of renos over the year. We put a waterfall in our little pool, and we extended the palapa upstairs. So we had a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a bathroom up there. We loved it. But I'm a gypsy.
I was going to say, it sounds idyllic. And what happened? You left.
Well, after 4 years, there were a handful of different things. And one of the big things was my husband's from British Columbia, and he loves the mountains and the scenery and the ocean and everything. And even though we had the ocean, we were like, it's flat in Merida. And Progreso. It's flat.
Yucatan period is flat.
Yeah. It's like the prairies, you could shoot a gun and then it would drop. Plus, that area tends to be a lot hotter. So with having said that, we made the decision to do a little bit of traveling around. So we sold our place, but we had made a commitment to a fundraiser. I was the MC, and my husband was doing a little entertainment.
Okay.
I think that's the one where he was, anyway, it doesn't matter, but a comedy type thing, Elvis or something.
I was like dying to know. I'm like, what does he do?
I think actually that's the one where we tied the towel on his head and put the flowers, and he sang with the fruit or something like that.
Carmen Miranda style?
He did Carmen Miranda. Anyway, So we had 3 months or 4 months before we the fundraiser. So it gave me time to sort of scout around and find someplace else we wanted to go. And we stayed in Chuberna and Chicxulub, which is 2 of the beach towns either side of Progreso, a lot smaller than Progreso.
Uh-huh.
And those were fun, and we enjoyed them. And it sort of tempted me almost to stay there.
Uh-huh.
But we had a lot of friends there. That was the hardest part, was we had made so many amazing friends. You never spent a holiday alone, or if you were sick, your friends showed up with dinners and whatever. So that was the hardest part, was leaving the friends.
Sure.
So we did, I think it was January, February. I think it was February. We headed in the direction to come west, and we took 4 days. And we drove through the Yucatan and around Mexico City. We don't like driving through Mexico City. And over here through Guadalajara, we spent our last night on the road in Guadalajara with our 2 rescue puppies. And we ended up in Bucerias in a place called Los Arroyos Verdes, which is a little bit inland from the ocean. Like it's a 10-minute drive to the beach, so it's not like far away. But this lady purchased this acreage and turned it into a botanical garden, basically, and then built all these little houses in there. So, and it's pet friendly and has a beautiful big swimming pool. So, and you pay one rent and everything's included. Because one of the things that we found, and I'm sure you have down here, is electricity is one of the great expenses, you know, especially if you run air conditioning and that type of thing. So we stayed there for 5 months, and it was quite wonderful. We didn't think we were quite ready for communal living, and I had this vision, probably from the movies, of living in a cute, quaint little small Mexican town.
Okay.
So we had a little dinner party, and one of the gentlemen then said, "Oh, I have a house in a little town called La Desembocada, which is about 15 minutes from the main highway that runs up the coast here." So we went and looked at it, and it was a big house and great outdoor space, and the price was 600 Canadian dollars, which was phenomenal.
Right.
I know. Like crazy. So we decided to give it a go. So we moved in there for 7 months. But there was, first of all, you have this vision of this really cute little Mexican town. Okay. Tons and tons of dogs, donkeys, chickens, horses, and mules loose.
Running around.
That do their business where they please.
Sure.
So my husband ended up not even walking the dogs because it was just not nice.
Gotcha.
So I tried going to some of the little local stores to buy things, and I guess we're really spoiled as Canadians because the things just weren't the quality of what I was happy with, let's say. So even though the price was great and it was a good size home and it had nice outdoor space, we found nearly every day we were getting up and going into town to visit friends somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
At least 4 days a week, if not 5. So one day we were in the marina, and we had seen this ad for this condo that was for sale. And so we went and we looked at it, and it was right on the golf course. And 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms on the 3rd floor overlooking the golf course with the big high vaulted ceilings. We're both tall, so that's important to us.
Okay.
And so we decided to jump in, buy it, and renovate.
Okay.
Our realtor was great. He recommended a fabulous contractor who we were going to do the kitchen and a few little things around. We ended up gutting the whole damn place.
Pretty good.
You know that story. You don't know that story at all, do you?
Oh, yeah.
So we ended up gutting the whole place, and I had a built-in cement bathtub, which I'd always wanted, and the little glass sparkly tiles all around in my bathroom, and it was really quite beautiful when we were done. Unfortunately, I ran into some health issues and hip problems, couldn't do the 3 floors with no elevator, so we sold.
Gotcha.
So we went back to Los Arroyos Verdes because we knew it was affordable and everything was included, and we took one of the bigger suites. And we were there a year and decided we just weren't ready for communal living. Wasn't really our cup of tea. Even though I'm 69 and my husband is 75, I don't know when we're going to be ready for communal living, but we weren't. So
I get that. I mean, I totally get that. It is a different mindset. It's a different it's a different environment. Yeah.
So I was on Facebook one day and I saw this property that we're on now, and it was only about 3-minute drive from where we were. And it's a really interesting property, Dawn. The owners used to own this acreage, which was a mango farm. And there was the mom and the dad and about 7 kids. And dad died young, leaving mom with 7 kids. So they continued to have the mango farm, and whatever money she had extra, she bought properties in our little town of Buceria. She was very smart. And by the time she passed, all her kids, but the one daughter that she lived with still on one of the casitas on the property, and her other daughter, who owned the house that we're in now, were left, and they had divided the property up and made 20 good-sized lots, and Canadians and Americans and some Mexicans and one Italian built these lots and built wonderful homes. Now, the home we're in was the Mexican daughter, and so we don't have a wall around us like most of the homes in our area. We have like a fence and gates and whatever, so we're protected, but not like with a big wall. Okay. And it's a fairly big lot, and we have a casita on it and a swimming pool on it, and we have a games area where we can play bocce and horseshoes. So it suited our lifestyle a lot better than being in like a townhouse and in, you know, that type of living style. So we've been here 11 months now.
Oh, not long. Okay. Wow.
And we absolutely, positively love it. And, we're a 5-minute drive. We go out to the main road from here, which is like a minute. And then we're like 6 minutes, depending on the light, because it's a 4-minute light.
Right.
So 6 to 10 minutes to get to the beach. And then we can drive right down that road, over the main highway, and right down to the beach. We can park right there. We can walk the beach. We can walk to 2 or 3 restaurants within a couple of minutes. And we're also a 10-minute drive to 3 major grocery stores that have got anything and everything except really good black licorice. And I can't find black licorice here anywhere, and I love black licorice.
Oh, it's always something. I hear you.
I do have friends bring me down my Tetley tea bags, so I'm okay that way.
Right. They're light.
Yeah. So we pay 25,000 pesos a month for our rental. Now, on top of that, we pay all the bills and all the maintenance. So it can get...
Okay, so you didn't buy that place. Okay.
We're just renting, yeah.
Got you. Okay, and is it a homeowners association type of situation, or they're all in just individual lots?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Okay. So to be able to divide the lots up the way that the lady wanted, they had to do strata, or whatever you want to call it, homeowners association.
Yeah, I like a homeowners association. A regime, they call them a condo regime, even if they're not condos, I believe.
Right. But in actual fact, the neighbors kind of get together every now and then and say, hey, we need that pothole fixed. Yeah, okay, we'll fix that pothole.
Gotcha.
And so it's not like here's the rules and the regulations and you have to do this and you have to do that. It's none of that. So in that respect, it's great. Plus, I'm a renter, so I'm not involved.
Right. Well, yeah, I was going to say, and then it's
that's a huge plus.
Yeah, if you don't like it, you can always leave. Awesome.
Right.
Well, I think this is a good time I was going to just take a quick break and come right back to you. So,
okay.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Integrity Vacation Property Management. Trust, truth, results. From buyer's representative services to rental market analysis, staging, marketing, and full-service property management, achieving your goals is our top priority. Visit our website at www.integrityvpm.com and get our free guide, Self-Manage or Hire, a property owner's checklist of issues to consider. Contact us for a free consultation to see if we can help you maximize the return on your investments. Integrity VPM, raising the bar in vacation property management.
Okay, and I am back with Barbara Harris, and just loving this story and all the different places you've been, and you've been like Goldilocks, right? This one's too small, this one's too soft, this one, and it sounds like you finally found your perfect fit in your Goldilocks story. So I love that.
Yeah, I think so, and I think a key that people need to know when they rent down here, especially if they rent from nationals, is that you're expected to do the maintenance.
Yes, good point. Absolutely good point.
Right, yeah. Changing a
There's
light
no
bulb.
calling the landlord and saying, "Hey, the screen door broke. You need to come fix it."
No.
Like, that's on you. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's a real important key, I think, for people looking to come down and to rent and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that. So yeah, and I don't know if I told you when we chatted last time, but we took 2 months the first year we were here, and we drove the interior of Mexico and spent a week in all these different cities. So
good for you. Oh, I love it.
I know.
And you weren't afraid?
Not at all.
Okay. Why weren't you afraid? There's a lot of fear out there. So were you did you like research the places that you're going to and you just felt comfortable that it was okay? Or in hindsight, should you have been fearful? I mean, tell me about that.
Well, we're seniors in a big old gray van. Who cares, right?
Mexican plates? Did you have Mexican license plates?
No, not at that point.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And we still had our Canadian driver's licenses as well.
Okay.
Now, we have timeshare, so I did research and found 8 units that were available in the interior that we could drive from one to the next. So we spent a week at each location.
Okay.
So I kind of knew that where we were, the lodging was safe.
Okay.
And we still had to drive from place to place. So that's kind of, but no, in fact, the only trouble we ran into was we got a flat tire. And when we went to get our car, some Mexican gentleman came and said, you've got a flat tire. And I went back into our suite, or I think I just went in the lobby, and Wayne went with them and they took him and they helped him. And it ended up costing $5 Canadian.
Yeah.
And he tipped both of these guys like 20 pesos, which is like, what, $1.
Right.
And they were thrilled. They said, oh, no, they didn't need anything, but we did. So, we didn't run into any trouble. And I guess the one thing is, I don't think that there's anything to worry about, so I don't worry about it. So I don't attract that into my life.
I'm so glad you said that, Barbara. I agree 110%. I really think that's true. And in fact, in my workshop, the third day is that topic, the topic of fear. Right. And sort of what are they fearing? The fear of the unknown, or is it, what's driving that? But for sure. And I loved your plan where you had your places to stay and you were completely comfortable with that. And that's part of what I teach too, is if you have a plan, right, you take a lot of the guesswork out of it. And so you don't really have that fear of the unknown because it's known. Right.
Right. Acapulco wasn't our favorite place.
No, we didn't prefer it either.
It's as long as you stayed on the beach side and minded your own business, or you were out in the water, it's quite beautiful and wonderful. But we went into town once to drive around, and we were uncomfortable. So when we're uncomfortable, we know it and we get out, and we don't do that.
It's the radar, right? I agree with you 100%. And actually, we sailed there, so we were anchored, and it was kind of real sketchy. But yeah, the energy, the energy was not good, and we didn't really experience that in many of the other places that we stayed. Right. So that to me is one of the best things you got going for you, right? Is that radar that goes up.
When I do my teaching, I always say, the one person that is always, always, always right is your gut.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You always listen to your intuition, what's telling you from inside. It's always right.
Amen. You're spot on with that. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, so I was trying to keep track because you've been to different places. So you did purchase in Mexico at least once or twice? How many? Twice.
2 times.
Okay, twice. And I know some people have concerns about that. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, and if you had any reticence about that, or you do it again in a heartbeat? It sounds like you did well with rehabbing these places and probably be able to sell them.
We did really well with both of the homes. I think the key thing is to talk to quite a few people and get references. So they've had actual experiences, not somebody they drink with in the pub, but somebody where they have actually, gone through the process. And one of the things that we find here in Mexico is that the rules and the regulations can change in a heartbeat, can change by who you're talking to, and can change by what office you're in. So if you go to one immigration office, you can get a different answer in the next immigration office the same day. So we really felt it was important that we had a really good lawyer and a really good notary. And I'm sure I've got this right, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Mexico, the notaries are the most important, and then the judge, and then the lawyer. Is that correct?
I don't know about the pecking order, but I do know that the notaries are lawyers that are government appointed for those notarial positions, and they basically control that whole process.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lawyer has to use a notary.
Yes,
right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's the big key, is to make sure that you have people that have got a really good reputation. 4 or 5 people can say, yes, I did this here. See, I bought this, I sold this, I didn't have any problems. That doesn't mean you're not going to run into problems. There, I know people that have bought property, been through a good lawyer, been through a good notary, done all of the work, done everything they're supposed to, got halfway through, and somebody shows up and says, hey, this is my property.
Right.
You can't do this. So there's no real 100% guarantees, but at the same time, would I do it again? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, I have a real estate program, and one of the things that I say is, you wouldn't fork over $100,000 to a guy you met in a bar in Canada or the United States. Why on earth would you think it's okay to do that in Mexico? Like, there is a legal process that you need to go through. And follow to make sure you're not going to get ripped off. Otherwise, you are just asking for trouble.
Exactly. And it's the same thing when we go out and travel. I'd be nervous in Canada if I got into the wrong places or drove in the wrong areas. So we don't really find it a whole lot different, like safety wise or that. Now, I don't know if you talk about the fideicomiso at all.
Yes. Yeah. I kind of explain all of that in there, and some people are not comfortable with that. But I, as a lawyer, for sure was, because any financial planner, at least in the United States, I can't speak for Canada, but any financial planner worth their salt will always have you put your real estate into a trust for estate planning purposes, right? To avoid probate and all of that. So the fact that Mexico requires, foreigners to hold their property in a trust is, is fine. Like I would have wanted to do it that way anyways. But it can spook people away about that, but there's nothing nefarious about it at all.
Right. And the trust, I think you just have to have within, is it 50 miles of a border?
Yeah, it's or the oceanfront properties.
Right.
100, or Tom says 100 kilometers. So yeah, it's about 50 from the coast. Okay, so 100 from the border and 50.
Right.
So yeah, but that Yeah, that's fine. So needless to say, where ours is. But anyway, and there's a story I won't go into, but basically we know some Mexicans who did not have their property in trust and are in the middle of a land dispute that had they owned their property in a trust, it probably would not have happened. Forgery involved and so forth, because the trust does add an extra layer of protection for somebody that tried to do some funny business on the title. So there's that.
In both cases, our buying was painless. In both cases, our selling was painless. In fact, the condo on the golf course that we renovated, there was somebody looking at one of the condos in our building, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, are you looking to buy in here? My friend's selling," and she brought her up to my place. And they ended up buying, so we went directly to the lawyer and said, "We want you to process this. We don't want to do it." And it was fine, no problem.
So really a for sale by owner situation there. Wonderful. Yeah. And then you'd been through it before. So there's one more thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know it's a big deal. I've been through multiple, I think this was my fourth move to a completely new area that I really didn't know anyone. And you talked about the worst part about moving was losing the friends that you had made, the community. So tell us any tips that you might have for meeting new people and how you were able to assemble such a nice network of friends.
Well, it's funny because I did it differently in the different places. So I guess I just took advantage of what was available. So when we first moved down, we were in Progresso. And I went to the farmers market and I met Canadians and Americans and other English-speaking people. And I said, "Oh, I'm doing a barbecue on Sunday night. I'm making the hamburgers and hot dogs. Bring a side and a bottle of wine." And I gave them my little card with our address on. And then I'd sort of keep track of the people that I connected with and felt like I wanted to be their friend. And I'd invite them again. And the people that didn't really meld, I just let them drift away. And that's how I built it up. And we got to the point where we actually had to start saying no to dinners out because we just couldn't eat and drink that much.
So parties, I love it. You are definitely a woman after my own heart. I love it. Throw parties.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. So, that's a great way to meet people. In fact, I have to tell you, Tom reminded me of some friends of ours that we met at the marina when we were living there, and he would have church on Sundays at the marina, which was basically just Bloody Marys at 11 o'clock. But with fellowship, of course. And so we would joke that, he was the pastor and, there was no politics allowed to be discussed, or religion, I think. I don't know. Well, we were at church, so we had the religion thing going for us. So we didn't really need to talk about that. But yeah, it was growing and growing and growing and growing. And word would get out. And so, you'd end up with like 25 people for Bloody Marys in church on Sunday. And it's a great way to, and of course, sailors
right.
like to congregate like that anyway. But
that's right.
And the farmers market, great place to meet people.
And then when we moved here, of course, we were in a gated community, so we met a lot of the people around the pool and that. So that was one way. And then when we moved into the marina area down Puerto Vallarta way, there was a lady there that had an expat group, and she would do dinners and happy hours. And so we met up that way and met a lot of people through that. So yes. Now I've also run goddess retreats down here.
Oh, okay.
And so I met people through, needing spiritual guides to come and do some of the meditations or the ceremonies and that type of thing. So I met people through that way as well, through the retreats. Yeah.
Sure. When you're organizing them, you meet lots of people and vendors and service providers and so forth, not to mention the guests that come. And then didn't you tell me you also were involved with theater?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, so community theater has been my passion for my whole life. And I really missed it when I was in Progresso, except that they have a magnificent theater in Merida and an outstanding symphony. So we used to get season tickets to the symphony and we'd go to the symphony. And that's the other thing I really missed coming over here.
Yeah.
But I did discover there was a fair amount of live theater here. So I kept going to this one live theater and I'd say, who's in charge? You know, and I'd say, I'd like to direct. I've got experience. I'd like to direct. Finally, they phoned me and said, we need a director. And I'm like, no, really? So I ended up directing 2 of their productions, which were sellouts, and I'm very proud of that. And then one young lady that was in my play wanted to direct, and I said, well, if you direct, I will assist you and mentor you. So, yeah.
Wow. And that's another great way to meet people too, obviously, is a common interest like that. Cool. Well, you have just such a fascinating story, and I'm just like so excited to be able to connect with you. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do have a final question that I would like to ask, that I usually do like to ask, is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to share?
I guess really, I guess one of the things was when I came down here, I envisioned being part of the Mexican community. And we studied Spanish, and that was important to us. Well, it turns out that their culture is so different than ours that as seniors, it wasn't something that was easy to work into. For example, they tend to sleep in till 10 o'clock. They have their big meal around 2, and then they sleep for 2 hours. And then all of the family, including all the little children, get together for meals quite late in the evening, 9 or 10 o'clock. And as seniors, you know, at 65, you're like, oh my God, you know, it's 9 o'clock. I want my tea and my toast. It's noon. I'm hungry for my salad. You know, it's 6 o'clock. It's dinner time, you know. And when they're ready to have their dinner and socialize, I'm ready to put my jammies on and have my game of cards or watch my movie and go to bed. So, you know, I did make Mexican friends, and they were way more Americanized than sort of the other people. So we do have some Mexican friends, and I love that. My Spanish is not good enough to carry on a full conversation, but I can get by with understanding what's being talked about and getting help and that type of thing. So there was that. And the other thing is lots and lots of people ask about the medical system down here. And I think that's a huge key. We did at the beginning purchase the government insurance, which is extremely affordable, but there's a reason for that.
Sure.
You know, we would go in for an appointment and there would be swabs on the floor with blood on it. They did a mammogram for me and they took the gown off the shelf, the hook that everybody else ahead of me had worn. There were things that just, you know, weren't really in my comfort zone.
Sure.
I'm not saying necessarily they're wrong. I'm just saying it wasn't in my comfort zone.
Gotcha.
Now that was 1,200 Canadian dollars a year for both my husband and I as seniors, which was extremely affordable. And all your meds were free, like everything was included, dentists and everything. But again, you know, my husband went into the dentist and he said to me, Barbie, you won't go in there.
Right.
So I didn't even go in. I don't know what it was like, but I didn't. So we have private medical insurance, and the private hospitals here, I think, are superior to Canada and the United States. Now, that's only my opinion. Whether I'm right or wrong.
I've heard that from others as well. So,
I mean, I had a huge internal problem, and I phoned a friend, and she gave me his name and number of his office. We were still on the road heading home, and we got in on a Saturday, and on a Monday, this surgeon saw me.
Wow.
The surgeon walked me downstairs to where I needed to get the tests done, set me up to have the tests done, said, and showed me the girl that would give me the reports and told me to come back up to him when I had the reports. So I got all the reports that same day.
Wow.
I went back upstairs and he reviewed everything with me, told me what needed to be done, reviewed his calendar and said, I can do this either on Friday or Monday. I said, I'd like to get it done as soon as possible. So I went in. He said, well, if you come into town, because we were in Progresso and Merida was like 40 minutes away to the hospital. He said, if you come in on the Thursday night, it will be less expensive if you stay in the hotel across the street, and I'll give you the meds to get started, which he did.
Wow.
He came over himself to the hotel suite, set my husband and I up with what I needed to do. And the next morning when I arrived at 8:00 at the hospital, he was there. He met me. He took me through the process. And then when I was going into surgery, before I went into the operating room, he brought the staff and introduced them to me. I know.
Wow.
Everything was spotlessly clean. All their uniforms were spotlessly clean. All of the equipment was modern and up to date and unbelievable. Once I was ready, they let my husband come in and walk me down to where I went into the sterilization area, the sterilized area, and they let me wave, and they took me through 3 rooms to get me sterilized to get into the operating room. And then when I was done, the surgeon gave us his card and wrote his home phone number and his cell number and said, you need anything, you phone me.
Wow. What a story.
And that was major surgery that I had. I had half of my large intestines removed. I had a cyst removed, and I had my appendix removed. Wow. And all of that care, love, attention, whatever, was 12,000 Canadian dollars.
Wow.
So
that was not including insurance? So you didn't have insurance for that?
I did not. I did that privately and paid.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And now we have private insurance, and it's very expensive because I'm 69, Wayne's 75, and we have pre-existing conditions, but we're covered, and we pay cash for private things just because it's more in our personal comfort zone.
Sure. So is that a plan that just covers you in Mexico, or is that outside? Is it a global plan, or what
it's
type?
It's a global plan minus the United States.
I have that too. Maybe it's not the same. I have IMG is the company.
Vumi.
What is it?
Vumi.
Vumi. Okay. Not familiar with that one.
V-U-M-I, Vumi, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I don't, how do you define very expensive, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, as Canadians, it's 9,000 Canadian dollars a year.
Okay.
Which is seniors on pensions is expensive.
For both of you. So I have, mine is $110 a month for me, but I'm not 60 yet. So it may go up.
No, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tom, we just have on Medicare in the US, and he has coverage on there. So we figured if something happened, he would, go back there. But yeah, it's definitely a question that comes up to a lot of people. And, depending on what your comfort, I mean, for years in the United States, I just felt like the best healthcare plan is health, right? And so I just wanted catastrophic coverage. And even back then we said, we could handle a $10,000 hit. We couldn't handle $100,000 hit. And so we just, don't take any prescription meds. We don't have any health issues. And so it's like, you eat well, you sleep well, and all of that. And then you have something there in case for big stuff, but you're not shelling out all of this money for things you're really.
And that's basically where we are now with what we have, which is great. And like you said, like we take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that, because it is something that people care about and are concerned about. And I go into a lot of that, the care issue. There's a big fallacy about that. That's one of the myths that I bust, is that, oh, the healthcare is not as good overseas. Well, that's just flat out not true at all. So you've confirmed that, and I've heard that.
Well, a lot of the private hospitals here are also training hospitals for doctors coming down from Canada to the United States and England.
Yes. Absolutely. And vice versa. A lot of the doctors here have trained in, the US and Canada and even, Europe, other countries as well. And they're bilingual, and, they're as competent as they come. Right. So it is nice to have that. So
yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. I am just delighted to be able to connect with you and share your story. And gosh, I really want to come visit. I mean, it sounds like you have a really nice place there, and you can come visit Isla Mujeres, and maybe we'll do a little swap here. Love
right.
All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dawn. Have an awesome day.
You too.
This episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast was brought to you by our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in. Did you love this episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast? Then please subscribe to our show and leave us a nice review. It's very much appreciated. We invite you to visit www.overseasliferedesign.com. We'd also love for you to become part of our OLR community on Facebook. Thank you for listening.